am really excited today because I have a sweet friend with me via Zoom. So thankful for Zoom, right?
Yes,
Christin Turner, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I am super excited to be here with you as well, but you're not anywhere near where I'm at. Where are you from
No,
today? Where are you at?
I I'm in my house in Redding, California, which is far north California. So we are about 2 hours north of Sacramento, 3 hours north of San. No, I said that wrong. 2 hours north of Sacramento, 3 hours north of San Francisco, almost to Oregon. So
Wow.
um, we, yeah, came here on assignment from the Lord. Yeah.
Yeah, and can you explain like a little bit about who you are and what it is that you're doing in Reading?
Yes, I have been in ministry as long as I can remember in different ways and forms. And from I did a Bible degree in my undergrad and then went on to seminary and did a very rigorous academic spiritual degree. If you could do spirituality academically, I did that
Hmm.
at a wonderful seminary in Dallas, and then had a family. And as we've moved throughout the country, not really, we went from Texas to Florida. And then the Lord called us here so that I could go to Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry and kind of balance out that academic spirituality with a little bit more. I kind of want to hear spicy. That's the word I hear: spicy, wild, Holy Spirit infused spirituality,
Good
which
word.
has been so fun. So I finished that. It was a 3-year program, finished that in May of last year. And
Congratulations.
thanks. It
That's a
feels
huge
good.
accomplishment.
It is. It is. As much as I love learning and love being in school, I'm enjoying not being in school right now.
Girl, I'm right behind you. I finished in December, so I'm like, hurry,
Woohoo!
hurry.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
coming. It's coming.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but we are remaining in California
Love that.
for 3 years to let our youngest. I'm married to Adam and we have two sons. My
Mhm.
oldest Luke is a freshman at San Diego State University this year, and my youngest is a sophomore. His name is Titus, and so he's a sophomore in high school. He's got a great community here, great school, and we just feel, as much as Adam and I are ready to move on to the next place, we feel like the Lord has asked us to stay here and
Ooh.
let him finish high school.
Mhm.
And so we are learning how to trust the Lord in that when he says stay and not go, because we've gotten good at going when he says go,
Mm.
but to stay when we want to go it's been a new angle, I guess, on that
Yeah.
lesson of obedience. But
Ooh,
anyway,
that's good.
so in the meantime, I work with a church out of Pensacola, Florida, that we helped start when we were there, and meet with a lot of, or not a lot, I meet with women usually doing one-on-one kind of spiritual direction
Mhm.
sessions, and then take any opportunity I can to minister. And I love doing prayer team stuff and just talking with women and have a heart for freedom and
Mhm.
inner healing and things like that. So
Yeah. Well, you came with a group of ladies down
I
to
did.
Texas to pour into many of our leaders, our women female leaders within our church. And so it wasn't too long ago that you guys were in Texas, and it was just a fantastic, just man, just breath of fresh air that you guys brought.
Oh,
California air down to Texas.
California.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and we had a blast, and
Oh, it was
I am
sweet.
excited to say that what the Lord even did there in Texas on that retreat has continued on for that group of women in class, where
Mm-hmm.
they're becoming known as the Texas girls. None of them are from Texas, right? Uh,
I
but
love
they
that.
in class, like the Lord just keeps using them as
Moving.
a
Yeah.
team in their second year class
Yeah.
to do amazing things. So
That's really
fire is still
beautiful.
still going. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Well, I know that what you shared at our leadership retreat is why I'm having you come on the podcast today, because we are in the middle of a series on calling and assignment and just like how do you figure out what you're supposed to do when it comes to following the Lord, and what does that look like, and how do we spend our time wisely, and how do we not let fear overcome us
Yeah.
when God calls us to something kind of scary, you know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever they, or maybe it's scary that we're having to wait, on
Mhm.
things.
For
So
sure.
whatever that looks like, I know that it's changed over time, but your calling has remained the same. So I'd love for
Yeah.
you, before we even like dive into the specific questions of what we're talking about today, like, can you give us kind of an idea of how the Lord has used that word? What is calling? What is
Yeah.
assignment? How do you define that?
I define, and I'm taking this from my amazing mentor from last year who taught us that your calling is what you do no matter where you are.
Mm,
So, where as opposed to maybe like an assignment, which is the place or the position. So, I mean, I remember, you know, in my early 20s when I felt this call to ministry, there's that almost that angst of I feel called to ministry, but I am raising small children
mhm,
and I don't have
mhm,
time to maybe work professionally, or a sense that I couldn't complete my calling if nobody else recognized what my calling was, and that that just that need to be
mhm,
in a position to fulfill my calling.
mhm.
But I have learned that your calling just comes out of you. Like if you are called to children, you're going to be the person who is finding kids in the store and talking to them, or volunteering to work with kids. That
Right.
that thing that's your calling bubbles up, I think, out of your heart, and you can't help doing it no matter where you are
It just
and
comes
no matter
natural,
what
right?
it just comes natural. So, yeah, but your assignment changes.
Mhm,
But you can fulfill your calling no matter where you are assigned.
mhm. How have you seen that played out in your life in different seasons?
And
And what is
I,
your calling? Could you
yeah,
give us that?
calling is also very vague, right? For
Yeah.
some people, it can maybe be easily defined. I have just felt all my life felt called to ministry, and kind of
Mhm.
the Lord has honed in what that has looked like over the years.
Right.
Um, and some of that it gets maybe mixed in with what are your giftings and what's your personality, and all of that kind of meshes together. I would say my calling is to what I love doing is talking with people and getting them connected more with the Lord, with
Mhm.
through inner healing things, through just having a conversation where they maybe haven't seen how the Lord is working in their life, but as they communicate that to me, I can more easily, because sometimes we just have blinders when it comes to
Sure.
our own things. But to have an outside vision that says, you see that's the Lord moving and working, and how do you approach him? And I've learned over and over again that it really all just comes back to that dependence on the Lord, letting him guide your steps. And
Mhm.
so kind of that comes out of me a lot because I feel like that's my calling. Like that, I love that. And the Lord just keeps bringing up ways to help others get there as well.
Mhm. That's good. Well, I mean, in my own life, you see that you have these interests, these desires, these, maybe you were use the word gifts.
Mm,
And I know sometimes, just based on conversations I've had with people, we can think that once we figure that out, it's like time, like right now, to
yeah,
go move into that place. But you're working with students, who are in their 20s and 30s.
yeah,
And oftentimes they're trying to figure out too, okay, Lord, what are you doing? What do you have? How did you make me? Like, these are questions that are really integral. And that's part of what you talked about at the leadership conference, was about knowing who you are first
yeah,
and knowing who the Lord is, obviously. And before you move into the, okay, what next?
right.
Can you speak into just how important it is to be like, for that foundation to be really strong before you move into these places of calling, assignment, all the things? So,
Yeah. I kind of the passage that really speaks to me on this is um and my calling is not numbers, my calling is words. So
yeah.
or my passion. I don't hold on to numbers very well, but in the book of John, where it's right before the Last Supper, before Jesus has the supper, or I think it's actually after they've had the meal, where he
Mhm.
washes their feet. And right before he washes their feet, there's a verse that talks about how Jesus knew who he was, he knew his relationship with the Father, and he knew his assignment, basically. And so, knowing his identity, which is what that boils down to, freed him to do the lowliest job that there
Right.
was at that time, basically. And so, I think when we know who we are more able to, well, it's just when you know who you are in the Lord, all of the rest of it kind of falls away. Like, I don't have to prove myself to people. I don't have to be okay in other people's eyes. If I am confident in who I am and who the Lord has made me to be, then I am free to move in obedience to Him without the other noise.
Hmm.
And we talked about the retreat that we defined identity as the sum of all the thoughts that you think about yourself. But an authentic identity is the sum of all the thoughts that God thinks about you. So, in order to truly know who I am, I can't just know like what I think about myself. I need to know what God thinks about me. And
That's
we talked
good.
about, there's scripture that talks about who we are and who He defines us as. But it's also important to hear from the Lord and from the Holy Spirit what He says personally about me.
Right.
Um, yeah,
That's good. That's good. I love that. And I I also know that when a word is given, well, let's just talk about an encouraging
okay,
word because we know that we do life better when we're in community. And as people start to see things in us, they call it out, right? They say, "Hey,
right,
you're so great with kids," or "Hey, have you ever thought about doing this? You're really good at that," or whatever that might look like. And these kinds of things start to influence what we think about what is God calling me to do or
right,
whatever. And so, but sometimes we can get a word, or even if it's a prophetic word, we can often think, well, that if it's been said, then it should be done really quickly. But what
right,
is the, I mean, I'm even thinking about that passage in John that you just mentioned. I mean, Jesus, when he came to earth, he knew his assignment, but it took 30 years for him to step into
right,
public ministry, right? And
right.
so, can you speak into that waiting and
Yeah.
the process of the waiting and what does that look like and what is God doing in that in the middle of that, in the space between the word that's given and actually stepping into the assignment?
Yeah. I think we, I think we get the wrong perspective, right? Especially if we get a word and we think, oh, it needs to happen now.
Yeah.
Um, the Lord is never in a hurry. Like, and that sense of hurry and pressure and got to get it done is not, I don't think, how the Lord looks at us, how He sees our lives. Like, He just doesn't get in a hurry. And
Hmm.
sometimes we need that word to, sometimes that word is like a seed and it goes in us and it needs to
Take
take some
root.
time to be watered and fed before it can sprout. And, you know, nothing is wasted. All that time of preparation, every moment up till today has just been preparation for today. And so, as long as we are seeking the Lord in it and following His steps, then just that sense of, oh my goodness, I've got to get there. I think if we can recognize that while yes, you need to be moving and not be stagnant, look for the Lord's pace. I read recently that the Lord moves at, I think it's 3 miles an hour, because that is the pace that humans walk. And I'm like, I don't think I walk that fast, but but the idea is to walk with the Lord, right? And
Stay in step.
to stay in step with Him. And He really isn't moving quickly. And I think
Mhm.
when we get that sense of urgency, that is a good catalyst to stop and go, okay, wait a minute, where's the Lord? And probably maybe even almost in my mind, I get the picture of looking back and seeing Him going, okay, yes, you ran ahead of me. So,
Yes.
but also the idea that we talk about this, I think, a lot, that life is a journey and it's not a destination. We basically don't arrive at any point in life with the Lord. Like, we just continue moving on and walking with Him. And so if
Mhm.
I can move my perspective to look at the journey is where I am, then or the goal is to be where I am with the Lord right now and let him guide my steps. I mean, yes, have a direction, have a point that we're going to, but also don't hold on to that so much that the Lord isn't allowed to change it. Because
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
he does, right? Sometimes he says, all right, we're going to go this direction. And I go this direction with him and he says, okay, well, now we're going to go right. And if I just had it in my head to keep going straight, then I would miss his cue to turn and go for the next thing. And I think it just, there are, the whole point is to be in relationship with him and to hear him and let him guide you on those steps.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So,
I love that. One of the things that I mentioned, we just did a weekend with Leif Hetland, and he came and spoke. And one of the things he said that Jeffrey and I, my husband, have both been processing is something that the Lord told him. The Lord told him, Leif, you need to slow down to catch up with me.
that's right. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And it like broke my brain.
Right.
Because I'm
Right.
like, especially in American culture,
For
we
sure.
know how to move fast. We know how to go. We know
When
how
we
to get
like it, right?
done. Oh, yeah. And it feels good. It feels good to be busy. I mean, I'm just being honest,
Sure.
But I have been doing a little bit of studying on a phrase that we see in the Bible a few times, the be still and know. Be
Yeah.
still and know I'm God, or be still, like the Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still. That's in Exodus, I think, 14. But
Yeah.
when you look at the phrase be still, in an American lens or text, we look at that word and we're like, that just means do nothing. Like just do nothing. But
Yeah.
honestly, those in the original language, that word means to let go, like to let
Wow.
go. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking here, like, Lord, what are the things that I need to let go of in my day in, day out life that I might be holding on to? It's kind of like what you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
having my hands open to be able to take that left when the Lord calls, or to wait when he says, you might want to wait on this, or I want you
Right.
to wait on this.
Right.
It's for your good that you wait, right where you are, don't move.
That's right.
But to be in step with him so I don't miss. I mean, he wants to be in the minutia of my life, and as well as the
Right.
big
Right.
decisions, right? And even think of the Lord's Prayer. I mean, we are invited to say, give us this day our daily bread. Well, that's the little stuff. But also we're invited to ask him for the big things too, And so he's a father who cares for his children, and he cares for the steps that he desires to lead us into, right?
That's
Passive
right.
righteousness for his name'sake. So I would love for us to kind of discuss the difference between the temporary assignments that we can be called to and what those look like, and those
Yeah.
lifelong like callings that we
Right.
learn and grow and adapt and continue to grow and get like clearer as we continue to walk with the Lord. Could you speak into that?
Yeah. As I said, I have always felt called to ministry, went to like got a 4 year seminary degree and graduated and then was expecting my first baby. So that was in some ways not what I expected, right? I wanted to, while we did want to start a family, I had also spent a lot of time and effort in training to be in a ministry
Ministry.
profession.
Right.
And then I will never forget, Luke was maybe 2-ish years old, and I have fed him and he's gone off to play, and I'm wiping crumbs off the table. And I have this moment of going, this is my life. Like all I do is wipe
Tunnel
up
vision.
crumbs. All I do is wipe crumbs up and clean up after this kid. And it was this moment of what did I do? Like all that
Yeah.
study for, is this all that I'm good for? And um and that kind of started I don't know, the Lord started a journey with me in that, and just learning to be present for the assignment that he's called me to. And quite frankly, I've been in a lot of assignments that I have not wanted to be in.
Mm,
And, I say I've been called to ministry all my life. Well, if I look back over and I'm in my late 40s,
mhm.
I maybe have had a paid ministry job for about a year and a half out of my ministry time. But that doesn't mean wasn't doing my calling. Like, even when the kids were little, I was leading mom groups and speaking into the lives of other moms as they also were speaking into mine. Or, I just always was finding a way to be with other women and talk with them about God. Whether that meant sitting on my kitchen floor with my best friend at the time, changing diapers together, or being in ministry groups through churches. There was always a way and always something that the Lord provided where I could, I don't know, I just live out and walk out the desire of my heart to serve Him.
Mm,
But a lot of that was serving my kids and raising my kids. And, whether you are a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, it's hard. Like there's nothing harder than parenthood, and maybe even momhood. Um, but to also recognize that through all of that, the Lord was working in me and building in me
that's
the
right.
things that I would need for today.
Yeah,
Um,
motherhood is refining.
it's so
Parent
refining.
parenthood is refining. It just
Well, it is.
continues to
And
refine you.
quite frankly, I needed some humbling. Like, I look back at myself in my early 20s and I thought I knew it all. And, wiping up crumbs was very humbling. Changing diapers was very humbling.
Yeah.
Um, and I needed that. Like, the Lord was working in me to make me more like Him,
Mm,
honestly. I want to say better, but just more like Him.
yeah.
Um, and
It's
even,
the goal, right?
yes, the goal. And even if I look back at the last 3 years, the things that I came out, or the reasons I thought I was coming to BSSM, the things, I mean, yes, I learned wonderful things about healing and supernatural and prophecy and all those great tools. But really, what the Lord did in me was establish who He wanted me to be at a deeper level.
That's good. Hmm.
So I think if you are in an assignment that you don't like and that you don't want to be in, the question is not, how do I finish this as quickly as possible? The question is, all right, Lord, who do you want to be for me in this? What do you want to do in me in this season? Um, because even when you're in the dream job and the dream position, it's not all, it's not all sunshine and roses and
Right.
easy. It's always learning to depend more on the Lord. So if you can learn that in your present assignment, it makes the next one better.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, um, I've got two kids, and so they're 11 and 13, almost 14. And, when they were young, I remember the days they felt really, really long.
Yeah,
It's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Sometimes it can feel lonely,
for
and
sure.
I am thinking about moms and dads who may be in that space right now where the kids are young, and I if I heard it once, I heard it a lot of times, especially this semester in the last couple of months, just how hard it's been with illnesses and just
Oh
one
yeah.
after the other, and it can be so discouraging to be like, what are we doing? What is going
Yeah.
on? And just wanting your kids to be healthy and all the things, but also those days can be long when they're young, and we can think, well, when are they finally going to be able to tie their own shoes, or when are they finally going to be able to, go potty without me needing to go in there with them? You know what I mean? Like all these
Right.
little
For sure.
things that's like, wanting the independence. But could you speak to the small beginnings
Yeah.
of assignments where the Lord calls us not to despise them, but to
Yeah.
really, I mean, I know it's difficult to relish those
It
small
is.
beginnings. Could you speak into the importance of that?
Yeah. And I think, even it's countercultural, right? Because we see in our culture always the the end results, right? And they say nobody makes it overnight, even though it
Right.
looks like it. But we don't highlight the years of just grinding, doing the job over and over again. We just highlight the success part of it in culture. So I think the truth is, if you want to have the success, even with kids, and that's a weird word to talk about with kids. But I will tell you, I did not love preschool years. They were definitely very long days for me, and a lot of days of breaking down at the end of the day, calling my husband, going, "You have to come home now. You have to come home now." Just I'm not a kid person. I love my children, but that's not my calling. Children are not my calling. And I married when Adam and I got married. He was an elementary school teacher, so he is not anymore. But that was kind of a fun dynamic of he loved those years. I'm like, give me teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but what I can see now, because my kids are Luke will be 19 next week,
Mm-hmm.
and Titus is 15, and I don't know. And I remember having small kids and people saying it goes by faster. It just goes by so fast. You just blink and it's gone. And I'm like, we could speed this up, is what I was thinking. I'm like, yes, please don't tell me again how fast it goes. But then I remember about probably when Luke was a freshman in high school, kind of almost like waking up and going, oh my goodness, I only have 3 years with this kid left at home. And
Mm-hmm.
it turned. And I think that there are seasons too. Like, if you are in the diapers and bath time and all of that phase, like it's a season and it will
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
um I remember thinking probably about when my kids were in middle school, I wish somebody had told me how sweet elementary school years are. So I kind of want to say that too. Like, to me, preschool was hard, elementary school was sweet, because you are dealing with elementary school level problems. And
Yeah.
you get into middle school, and it's like, instead of it being like, where are your shoes? It is now, this person hurt my feelings. And
Right.
you start
Friendships.
dealing,
Mm-hmm.
right. And that takes more from you, or at least for me, like it.
Emotionally and spiritually. Yeah.
Yes. And then, high school kind of becomes, for me, like, those have been fun days too. I love these high school years with my kids, who now, because we put in the work when they were little, we love having conversations with them. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, to watch Luke develop his own relationship with the Lord. And he's in college now, but he will call me on Sunday mornings, and just like things like, he tells me how, oh, the Lord is speaking to me. And I'm like, well, oh my goodness. So what is he saying? He goes, I don't know. We're just having conversations. And I'm like, those are the days that make it all worth it, and the hard conversations that you put into it get there, and to trust that nothing is wasted. In the Lord's economy, nothing is wasted.
I love that.
So that night you stayed up in tears with your kid is doing something in them.
Mm-hmm.
But also not to go too far the other direction, to feel that pressure of,
Pressure.
oh my goodness, every moment has to count. Um, Probably when my kids were, Luke was probably in middle school, and I was spinning in my head, and it kind of reaching that, as they're getting to that relationship, or that age where they start noticing girls and things like that. And my mind was just spinning, going, oh my goodness, like, they can't make a mistake. Like, what if I haven't told them enough about sex? And what if we haven't had enough conversations? And the Lord, as he does with me, he often will say, hey, calm down, Christin. Just chill out, chill out. But what he really said was, there's nothing your kids can do that I can't redeem them from.
Oh, yeah.
And in that moment, I began to see that I do my job. I walk in obedience to what the Lord has called me to do, but I leave results to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not enough
A
for
good
me
word.
to, yeah, it's not
Mm-hmm.
enough for me to regulate the lives of my children. I need to teach them how to reach out to the Lord and how to have a relationship with the Lord and not put my fears on them, and to let them, or just let the Lord work them. In fact, I always say one of my core beliefs in parenting and in ministry is that the Lord is always at work in that person. So it's not my job to fix them. It's not my job to help them see the light or whatever it is. It is my job to ask the Lord where he is and what he's doing in the life of that person, and how I can partner with what he's doing. And
Mhm.
trust that if they aren't where I want them to be, they are where the Lord has them. And that's okay. And that goes back to our calling, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, I I read a lot, and I pulled a book off the shelf a couple months ago that I had read in college for school. And it's a book called The Way of the Pilgrim. It's an old Russian classic. And as I'm reading through the book, I'm also reading my old college age notes in there. And there
Wow.
was a part of me that wanted to be like, oh, I'm just cringe, like, oh my goodness. Because as I'm reading this book, I realized as a young college student, I didn't get it at all. Like, I rejected it on the side of the charismatic side, going, I can't believe, I mean, everything that was in there that was supernatural, I was like, this can't be real, is what I was thinking as a college student.
Wow.
And then on the other side, for the high church Orthodox stuff, like the liturgy and stuff, I'm like, my young Protestant mind was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this stuff. Like, this is so not good. This
Yeah.
can't be. And as I'm condemning my younger self, the Lord says, would you give her a break? Like, she was where she was. And, and there's a part of me that I look back and I'm like, I wish that I had known then all that I know now, that I had known the Lord then like I know him now. And he just keeps saying, stop, stop dishonoring the history that we have together, and
Mm.
stop dishonoring the journey that we've
Mm.
been on together, because every moment was important and every moment meant something. And to recognize that sometimes we aren't ready for all the truth, but the
Yeah.
Lord is gracious and kind to give
Yeah.
us the truth that we are ready for in that moment. And he's just not in a hurry with us. Like, we
Yeah.
are the ones who get in a hurry, but he is not.
That's a
So
good word.
yeah.
I love that too because I'm even thinking about my own history with the Lord, and especially in the area of like, God, what did you specifically make me to do? Right? We're talking about calling, we're talking about assignments. It's like trying to figure out, well, who am I? It's an important question beyond your daughter, but beyond that, which I know,
Right.
like, what's the unique thumbprint you've given me? How am I supposed to glorify you on this earth and image you,
Right.
uniquely on this earth, Lord? And I think I wrestled with the Lord on that for um the earlier years of motherhood because I just didn't know. I didn't know. And then the Lord opened a door, as He does sometimes when He opens a door and He's like, hey, let's go check out this path
Yes.
together. And it was fun and it was creative and it was exhausting in all the good ways.
Yeah.
But that assignment didn't last forever. It
Right.
had an expiration date. And I didn't
Yeah.
know that when I walked through the door and went down that path, but the Lord
Mm.
did. And He just, like He does, He leads and guides, and
Yeah.
you start just to know, okay, Lord, what are you doing? You're doing something in me. I can feel that this is not forever. So what's going on? What are you doing? And like I said, the door ended up closing on that, um, and then I was like, well, what's next, Lord? But I look back on those years, and sometimes I'm not really sure why I did it, other than
Right.
just out of obedience. And then there are other times that I've thought about it, and I've gone, honestly, I think it was God's kindness
Mm.
that He allowed me to try out some
Yeah.
passions of mine,
Yeah.
to in order for me to know that's not what He called me to do forever. Like,
Yeah.
He gave me that space to work it out with Him, to wrestle
Yeah.
with Him, to try it, and learn and discover for myself that this is not my calling. It was in business, and it was just very clear business is not my calling. Like, I don't like asking people for money. Like, that's the worst,
Yeah.
most horrible thing. I do not like it. It's not my favorite.
Right.
I love creating, but I did not like the business side of things. And so, sometimes I look back on that and I go, I don't even know if I've unraveled all the reasons of why he allowed me to do that or why he called me to do that. And then I closed everything down. Like, I don't know, but I can look back on it and honestly see his kindness in those seasons and go,
Yeah.
God, if that was what it was for, is for me to see you in this light, not for me, but for me to see you
Yeah.
rightly as a God who cares for even these passions of my heart that I kept disqualifying for a long time because I didn't have the proper training to try it out,
Yeah.
and he was just like, "Let's go for it, girl." And he breathed on some risks and he allowed me to go for it. And
Love that.
failure wasn't on the other side of that like I thought it would have been. He was with me in it.
Yeah.
And it was hard, but it was good. And it was hard to close. But if he's going to open it back up later on in my life, who knows? I don't know. But it's that idea of just holding things loosely, like just,
For sure.
Lord, you're the one who gives and takes away. And my heart will choose to say, like, I love you, Lord. Blessed be your
Yeah.
name. Regardless
Yeah.
of whatever assignment you hold in or place in my hand or invite me to grab,
Yeah.
you are good and you will continue to lead and guide and be with us as we step into these places, regardless of if it's risky,
Yeah.
which is hard,
It is hard.
or if it doesn't involve risk. Maybe it involves, well, that's not the road I want to go down, right?
Right.
I mean, has that ever been something that the Lord has called you to that you're like, I can't, like, I don't want to do this, Lord? And how would you speak to the people who are in that season right now where they're like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this assignment right now.
Yeah.
How would you encourage people that are in that place mentally and emotionally and spiritually?
Yeah. Um, yes. First kind of thing, I think I love how you talk about the kindness of the Lord in it. And I think, especially if we have been in the church a long time and grown up in the
Mhm.
church, that's my background, which I'm very grateful for. Sometimes though we get into this mindset of I have to do it all right. Like
Yeah.
it can't make mistakes. Like everything has to be the like, what is the Lord saying? And I have to go that way. And in a
Mhm.
sense, we almost become victims of the Holy Spirit because we can't move forward unless we know where the Lord is moving us. And I
Mhm.
think that's not exactly the way the Lord wants us to operate with Him. Uh, I think He loves the exploration. Like, I mean, if you look at children, right? They
They're
explore,
curious.
they're
Mhm.
curious, they try things out and they try some things and they don't like them and they try other things and they do like them. I mean, when Titus was 4, he was determined he was going to be a trash man because he loved his trash truck that he played
There
with.
you go.
And so as a parent, I wasn't sitting there going, no, you are called to something different. I say,
Yeah.
that's great. Like, you're going to be the best trash man ever. Like, you're going to do a great job. And I think when we get so compartmentalized or just so rigid, maybe even in our minds that say, I have to find the one thing that I am made for,
Yeah.
we lose that childlike
Wonder.
exploration
Mhm.
and wonder. And I think the Lord really enjoys us exploring. I mean, yes, there are boundaries that He has set up in
Right.
Scripture,
Right.
but those aren't necessarily about calling, like I think the Lord takes great pleasure in who He made each one of us
Amen.
as individuals. Like, there has never been another you, and there never will be.
Mhm.
And so the Lord enjoys you as a person, your person, like just who you are, because He made you that way. But
Mhm.
He also loves for you to have a stake in it, right? And to explore and to say, you know what? Maybe I want to be a painter. And you paint for a while, and you're like, you know what? That was good for a season, but
Mhm.
that is not who the Lord made me to be. Like, when Titus went to kindergarten and it was my first year without kids at home all day, I taught myself to make iced cookies and I sold
There
them
you
and I
go.
loved it and it was great. And for
Yum.
a year, it was my passion. And I'm still grateful for that year of just and I think if you look at it on the oh my goodness, that's not ministry kind of mindset and you're called to ministry, then I would have missed the Lord reawakening in me a sense of identity that I think being a preschool mom had kind of covered over, and that happens, right? As a mom of young ones, you lose yourself because you are so focused on everybody else. And so
Mhm.
the Lord gave me a year of just fun, really, of just having fun with him and learning to create again
Good
and
word.
learning to express myself again. Did that mean I was going to become a baker for all my life? Absolutely not. And I very rarely make cookies anymore. Um, but but it was just a sweet time with the Lord.
Mhm.
So I think that idea of we can't make mistakes really kind of squashes down what the Lord wants to do in us. We have
Chokes the dove.
it does.
Mhm.
At BSSM, they would say all the time, like the Lord is more powerful to correct us than the enemy is to deceive us,
Mm.
which means like take the risk, like just take the risk. If it is not the path that the Lord really wants you to be on,
He'll let
he's
you
going to
know.
come back in and be like, hey, that was fun. Let's do something different. And again, there's nothing he can't redeem us from.
Mhm.
And again, there are boundaries in life, but to take that freedom to invite the Lord in it and try different things. Don't
Mhm.
be afraid of mistakes. Like the Lord is not afraid of your mistakes.
Mhm.
Um, he's happy to correct and happy to pick you back up and take you to the next level.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. That's beautiful. I even think about the original mandate, Genesis 2, when God made Adam and Eve, he gave them the garden and he said, go explore, like, go have
Right.
fun,
Right.
subdue the earth, like, go and take it, create,
Yeah.
make, name the plants and animals and all the things. I mean, he gave them all this freedom, although there was boundary, right? There were
Right.
boundaries there, but there was a whole lot of freedom. And one of the things that I processed with a friend of mine when I was coming to the end of the season I mentioned earlier was I wanted to have answers. Like I wanted to be able
Yeah.
to understand. And I think that's very human. We want to know.
Sure.
We want to know. It's the same thing that Adam and Eve struggled with. They wanted to know.
Right.
And we're just not always, we don't always need to know. That's the part of
Right.
faith and trust, right? That we're meant to grow in as we continue to get to know God and his heart for us
Yeah.
and trust that he is who he says he is and he will
Right.
do what he says he will do, which is to protect his kids and love us well and like only he can. But one of the things she said that I just thought was so beautiful was, the Lord has placed these passions inside of you, Sarah. Like, and
Yeah.
they're beautiful and they're robust and you're young and you've wanted to explore them and that's great. And the Lord has given you an opportunity to pursue one of those passage, two of those
Yeah.
passions that kind of align, they're parallel with one another. And now you're discovering that not all passions are meant to be your calling.
That's right.
And I was like, oh, they're just part of me, but they're
Yeah.
not my calling in the sense of like what he's asking me to do as I lay my life down for the sake of my brothers and sisters, right? Like
Right.
that's not what he's asking me to do in this lane. But he gave me this permission, right?
Mhm.
To reach out and grab hold of a few passions, test them out,
Yeah.
explore,
Yeah.
wonder about some stuff, and to discover, all right, that's not how you actually created me. Like
That's right.
this is more for my hobby. This is more for my enjoyment. This is more for my family and friends, not for the world, right? Not to
Right.
share with, you know, more people. And so I just find it so beautiful the way you express the wonder aspect of
Mm.
giving yourself permission to go, no, like there's freedom in the exploration process. And if we
Right.
can't approach our father like a child, you know what I mean? We're going to
Yeah.
feel like we have to know all of the steps and all of
That's
the
right.
answers.
Yeah.
And then we'll maybe miss out on some stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think of a quote that I remember, I think Scotty Smith said once. He's like, or maybe it was he's quoting somebody else. That's possible. But he said, we're created to wonder,
Yes.
WONDER, but we're prone to wonder, like
Uh,
WANDER.
yeah.
And that has really stuck in my spirit recently because of just that slow down to catch up with me.
Yeah.
Like calling from the Lord of just like stay in step, stay in
Yeah.
step, stay in step. Don't get
Yeah.
ahead of me. Like you don't have to get ahead of me. I'm right here with
That's
you,
right.
and that's the safest place to be.
That's
Regardless
right.
of what I've called you to, the safest place to be is yoked with me.
Oh,
Because I
yeah.
tell you in my word that if you will yoke yourself with me, like remember, my burden is easy, my yoke is light.
Yeah.
Like if we can just really get that imagery in our minds, it
Yeah.
would be so much like there'd just be so much more freedom, I think, in the
I agree.
all the what ifs and how comes and whys
Yeah.
that our soul wants to know when it comes to callings and assignments and seasons, especially if
Yeah.
those seasons don't look like what we thought they would.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, in those seasons that don't look like what we want them to look like, or it's an assignment that we don't want, to remember that, again, the calling and the assignment is not the goal. The relationship with the Lord is the goal. And sometimes He is working in us things that we don't see.
Hmm.
And maybe we'll never even fully comprehend. He's
Yeah.
reminding me of when Luke was learning to read, and he did not like learning to read. And it's kind of like, why am I having to do this?
Like, what? Why do I need this?
Why do I need this? And in a moment that I think was from the Lord, I said, you know what? We are not learning to read so that you can do reading for the reading's sake. But you love dinosaurs. And if you can learn to read, then you can learn about dinosaurs, or you can learn about rockets, or we don't learn to read for the sake of reading. We learn to read so that we can pursue things that we love,
Mm,
and learn about them. And I think sometimes those seasons of assignments that we don't want are the same thing. Like I, for a short season, and I've already said I am not called to children, not my thing. But in my, uh, as we helped start a church in Florida, I tended to fill holes, and we had a hole called children's ministry. And so, with great fear and oh my
and
goodness,
trembling.
and trembling, I said, Lord, if this is what you need me to do for a few months, I will do it. And of course, I brought myself to it. So, of course, we had a team. I didn't actually have to be in a classroom with kids, which is good for the kids and for me. And but I could build into leaders who love children. And I
Mm,
could or I loved making art projects. I dyed rice and noodles, and that's fun.
that is fun.
And set it up so that they could have a great morning,
Hmm.
and learn about Jesus and do the background work, which I do love the background work. So I think in those seasons when you are called to an assignment that you don't want and you don't like, you find a way to bring who the Lord made you to it,
Hmm.
and you hold on to Him. And I mean,
Hmm.
and pray, right? Like, Lord, this is not what I want to do. I think we be honest with Him on it. Like, this is not what I want to do, but I surrender. I'm coming open handed. What do you want to do in me in this season? Who do you want to be for me right now? Um,
And what do you have for others, I think,
and,
too?
and yes, what do you have for others? Like, how can I be a blessing in this season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, my final question, and then
Yes.
we'll wrap up. But I'm thinking about people who are disqualifying themselves because of where they're at and where they think they need to be.
Yeah.
That's the last place I really felt like we needed to go because I think there are many of us out there who, I mean, we're in the age of information
Yeah.
and everything's at the fingertips. And if you're not trained, you don't feel qualified. If you're not prepared in one way, shape, or form, then there is some fear there to stepping into something that God's calling you to because you don't feel like you're ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Can you speak into the faith and the journey of just
Yeah.
believing God in that place when He has given you something that you know is from Him, um, and just trusting Him with that and the timing and the training and all the things, the equipping?
Yeah.
Can you speak into that?
Yeah. And I think honestly, most people don't feel qualified. I mean, I can't ever remember feeling qualified to do what the Lord has called me to do. And honestly, I think that is by his design. Because if I feel qualified to be in this position, then I am moving forward on my own. I don't need you,
Yep.
Lord. I got this.
Yep.
Uh, but I love the phrase God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Mhm.
So when he calls you to something, he will do it through you. Like, and I think that's really one of the key elements of the Christian life, whether it's a calling or um, living with patience. Like, I don't actually
Yeah.
have to be patient. The Lord will move in grace to make me patient. Like, when
The
he
fruit of the
calls
Spirit.
me,
Yeah.
yes, when he calls me to righteousness, he's the righteousness in me. When he
Amen. Yeah.
calls me to be filled with joy, he is
And
the joy
love. Yes.
in
Yes.
me.
Yes.
And so again, it goes back to the dependence on the Lord. Um, so yeah, there's things that we do as people. Like if I want to be a speaker, then I probably need to, or write a book, I probably need to learn some skills in writing a book. I probably need skills in taking care of children or in baking. Like there's skills that we can develop,
Right.
but skills don't qualify us. The Lord qualifies us because he moves in us to do it.
And that goes right back to, I'm just even thinking as you were just talking about that childlikeness that you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier. Like the children need their parents to teach them.
Yeah.
They need their parents to guide them. They need their parents for a lot of things when they're young, right? And our job as parents is the older and older and older they get, the less and less and less they need us to help them live life. But the reality is we're never meant to grow out of our need for God and our dependence for Him.
Absolutely.
Never. Like,
Absolutely.
can we just like get that off the table and let's just learn to lean into Jesus more fully as adults and not be so terrified of Him helping us?
That's
You
right.
know, I mean, like, I am in a position that I guess technically I sort of went to school for, but there's a lot of things in this role that I didn't know how to do.
Right.
And I could have faked it and been all, proud and said, I can do this. Got this. I can figure it out and
Yeah.
whatever. But I have also really, I would have missed out on an opportunity not only to be, um, yeah, to be honest with my team, but also to have their strengths been brought up and out in the process, because leaning on them and leaning on the Lord and just learning and growing and doing this together has been a beautiful part of the kingdom. Like I love that in my weaknesses, there's other people on my team who are really gifted at that. And
That's
I am like, hey, tap, tap, tap on the shoulder, you're up. Buttercup,
right. That's
like I
great.
need
Love
you
that.
in this area, and then they get to flourish in their giftings and things that God has equipped them for. And that is
Yeah.
so much fun when we learn to lean on each other in the body and learn to lean on each other in the gifts and the things that God has given us. And that's probably one of the things I love the most about your team coming down to Texas is
Yeah.
that we got to see all these beautiful young women and including you operate in what the Lord has given them, what they carry, their strengths.
Yeah.
And that's probably, I told you I'd end on that other question, but now I'm going to end on this one and then we really
Okay.
will be done.
Okay.
But when they introduced themselves as the
Mhm.
team, it was just such a beautiful representation of the body. Like everyone has different parts that they
Right.
play as far as calling and assignment and things that we carry. And they kept using the language of, well, I carry this. And they would
Yeah.
give a list of things that they carry, like I carry purity or I carry um, grace or I carry this or that. My question is, where did that language come from, and how does someone discover what it is that they carry when it comes
Yeah.
to
I
that?
think that is some of that language is BSSM language. We talk a lot about that. Know what you carry and know what you bring. And and I think that's just a way of saying like what has the Lord placed in you. So for me, I tend to carry peace. And what that looks like is, and I started seeing it even before we moved out here. Um, Things like people would come into my home and they just relax.
Mhm.
And Ad- Adam's sister is she's a nurse in the Dallas area, and so very, you know, driven. Like she's taking care of children at work, and she's taking care of a family, and she's always moving and going and high energy and things like that. Well, she would come visit us in Abilene and fall asleep on our living room floor and wake
Wow.
up and be like, "This is so weird. I never do this." But because I carry peace, like that is a piece of the Lord that, like, the Lord has is peace, right? And He
Mhm.
has placed in me a measure of His peace that when I build a home, people come in and they feel it. It's in the atmosphere. I don't have to try, it just comes
Mm.
out.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
so, or I carry wisdom, and the Lord has developed that in me. And again, it's things that I think are aspects of the Lord
Mhm.
that without necessarily our asking, although sometimes, like, if wisdom I asked for as a kid, um, but peace I never asked for. It's just part of the self of Him that He's placed in me, that that's just in me. So when
His
you're in my
thumbprint on
presence,
you. Yeah.
it's imprinted on me. It just flows out of me because it's Him flowing out of me.
It's beautiful.
Um, yeah.
Thank you for answering that.
So
Well,
yeah,
this has been such a beautiful conversation. I hope that, and I know that it will encourage our listeners. But if there's anything that you could leave our audience with today when it comes to not disqualifying where we're at for what
yeah.
we think is in the future or what we hope is in the future or anything like that, well, how would you like to leave an encouragement with our listeners today?
For not feeling disqualified.
Yeah.
Um, I think again, it's the Lord who qualifies us. Um, I will share the verse that the Lord has had on my heart just in the last several weeks is Psalm 16:5. And I love the Passion translation of it. It says, Yahweh, you alone are my inheritance. You are my prize, my pleasure, and my portion. You hold my destiny and its timing in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really had gravitated towards that second part of it. You hold my destiny and its timing in your hands. Um, but as I was thinking about it in the terms of just like calling and all those things, he emphasized though that to have the destiny and its timing, we actually have to have the first part first, which is God Himself. Like it's not really about fulfilling a calling, it's about being in relationship and step with the Lord. That He's my portion, He's my prize and my pleasure and my inheritance. And so I think when we start thinking about being disqualified, we have put our focus on ourselves instead of the Lord.
Mm,
Um,
that's
I
good.
mean, and I know we look through, in scripture, nobody that the Lord called was qualified. They were
Yeah, I
all
think you could study a lot of those Old Testament
a
and the
hot
New
mess, right?
Testament people they were all hot mess express.
Yes. And the Lord used them because,
Yeah.
again, it's not just like I can't qualify myself to carry peace. The Lord just put it in me. I can't qualify myself to do what the Lord has called me to. I have to rest in Him and focus on Him and just keep my eyes on Him. And He will qualify me by being who He is in me to do what He's called me to do.
Well, thank you so much,
Oh,
Kristen, for joining
you're
us
welcome.
today. I appreciate all the wisdom and the just sharing your heart, your journey with us, and what has it looked like to discern your calling and your assignment, and how the Lord has just guided you on this journey. We talked about that a lot, and so thank you for pouring into us today. I
Oh,
pray blessings on you and your family, and just
well, thank
appreciate you
you.
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great honor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Well,
appreciate
thanks you guys for listening and watching the Beyond Sundays podcast. We
it.
hope you guys have a fantastic day. Be blessed, and we'll see you back next time.